Welcome to the Hot Lava Podcast. Kevin Acee, Padres beat writer for the Union-Tribune. Sort of in the dark here, I notice, in New York. Ryan Finley, sports editor of the Union-Tribune. 3 games against the Mets coming up. Just won 3 in a row after dropping the opener in Atlanta. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
This is the team we thought we were getting 2 weeks ago. Really playing well, delivering. It's funny. It's not necessarily the superstars, which gets me into the first topic here. Sunday night was Nelson Cruz show. 6 RBIs. He leads the team with 9 RBIs, despite playing in less than half their games. He is, he has been the pleasant surprise for me, at least in the first couple of weeks of the season. What is working?
Yeah, that's it, right? Like Manny. Okay, Manny goes whatever. He had a bloop single last night, and he was 3 for 5. Juan Soto's gone 2 for 4 the last 2 nights. They really haven't come through very much at all. Mm-hmm. And the Padres are 6-4, right? It's because of guys like Seth Lugo. It's because of Trent Grisham, Ha-Sung Kim, Jake Cronenworth, and last night, Nelson Cruz. Of course, Nelson Cruz he had 6 RBI last night. He has 9 RBIs in his last 3 games, which covers the Padres' last 5 games. Right. Almost a full third of their runs driven in that time. Yeah, look, we should dive into this Nelson Cruz. We should get preemptive on it, right?
Right.
Because last night, Bob Melvin was asked, is there a way he earns more playing time, right? His first home run was in place of Manny Machado on Tuesday when Manny Machado was ejected, and it was off of a right-hander. Wow. Hey, you think Nelson Cruz could play more? Well, sure, if you didn't have 5.5 months left in the season and he worked 42.
Right. No, that's a great point. And, I think too with him, maybe part of the success is that they're putting him in a position to succeed. Right. He's facing left-handers. He's hitting, I think, in the order where you would want a pleasant surprise guy to hit. That's what makes this to me so delightful. And I'm using the word delightful on purpose. This is not a guy who I expected to do a whole lot. This is somebody who, again, disappeared for the World Baseball Classic, right? Disappeared. Yeah. We saw a lot of Matt Carpenter for 2 weeks in spring training. And I think that sort of internally, maybe the expectations were whatever Nelson Cruz can give you is a bonus. And to see him carrying the load against a really good Atlanta Braves team, again, just to me, one of the big surprises so far.
That's a part of one of the aspects of this whole philosophy of building this team is
Sure.
You build it with a lot of players. What happened in 2021? Manny Machado was pretty good. Fernando Tatis Jr. was MVP worthy numbers, and they were below 500.
Yeah.
What happened last year? Manny Machado was basically MVP-ish the entire year, and they had to get hot late to, I thought they were going to be in the playoffs the whole time. That had more to do with the fact there's not a lot of competition.
Right.
But we all know what happened last year. They were kind of a middling team until the end. If you want to have the kind of team that plays well, I'm not talking about 105 wins, but a team that plays well all year and knows how to win, then it's a team that has a bunch of different guys picking it up, like the bottom of the order, or wherever Trent Grisham is hitting, what he's doing right now with 3 home runs, with getting on base every game, what Jake Cronenworth does kind of all the time, what Ha-Sung Kim has started the season by doing. Yes. If they're a championship team, it's because they have Xander Bogaerts, Manny Machado, Juan Soto, and Fernando Tatis Jr. And, 3 of the 4 had really good years.
Mm-hmm.
But the other guys, The other guys are very important.
You need contributions from obviously everybody in the lineup. You had a great note today. And Kevin, I don't know if you're old enough to remember the Chris Denorfia, Seth Smith platoon. This may be you may be on the chart. You may have been on the chart.
Yes, but I'm old enough.
You're old enough.
But
okay.
Yes.
The Padres in their history have had some platoons where you look at them and you go, yeah, if we're considering them as one entity, that's a really good entity, right? The Chris Denorfia, Seth Smith thing they were an all-star outfielder combined, right?
Yeah.
I saw in your excellent Padres Daily newsletter today, you laid out the numbers from both Matt Carpenter and Nelson Cruz so far this season. That's an all-star at DH if you combine the two guys, right?
Yeah.
If they can keep this up, and again, small sample size, if they can keep this up, this is found money for the Padres.
And here's the thing. I don't know off the top of my head where the Denorfia Smith platoon had to fit in, right? But I don't think it was as the 5th or 6th or 7th best player in the lineup.
I think they were hitting second. Yeah, or first.
And see, that's the thing about this is that's why you have 4 superstars, and that's why you do take a flyer on Nelson Cruz.
Right.
Is, wow, if this works, then, again, he is 42 and we are 10 games into the season. I happen to love watching a 42-year-old man, be 10 years younger than me, succeed at this level. And he is a good man. It seems to me, based on 2 months of having been around him at all.
Mm-hmm.
And he is a good teammate, which is obviously far more important than what I think of him personally. And it is remarkable what he has done through 10 games.
Nelson Cruz is older than me, Kevin.
Really?
He is older than me by 1 day. I looked it up this morning. Because
so if you had homered last night, then you would have missed by 2 days being the oldest Padre to ever homer. Because
yes, exactly.
I believe that was it, that Nelson Cruz is 1 day younger than Ricky Henderson was when he had his final home run for the Padres in 2001.
That's crazy.
So you could have been right there. How frustrating would that have been for you to be 2 days away from that distinction? Wow.
I know. But it's crazy. When I was reading today, I was like, wait a minute, I'm like 42 and whatever it was days. Let's do some math. And so
you keep track of how many days you are?
No. But when I was reading you writing about Nelson Cruz, I was like, wait a minute, that would be his birthday in July.
Head,
Yeah. And so anyway, he's 1 day older than me.
But 42 and a half, you still do that?
Like yeah. 42 and a half, even though my birthday's in July. Yeah.
42 and a half.
42 and a half. He joked to you, Kevin, that he can play anywhere they need him. Shortstop, right field, he can close, whatever. Nelson Cruz. The Padres need a right fielder.
Okay.
David, at least for a week.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. David Dahl is on the injured list. They called up Murrieta's Brandon Dixon. Brandon Dixon does not play the outfield, really. There's an opportunity here if they wanted to push their luck with Nelson Cruz to put him in right field. Do they push their luck?
Don't you think that's the phrase that push their luck? I mean,
yes.
Yes, but Brandon Dixon, I mean, are you going to argue that Nelson Cruz is going to be a better defender than Brandon Dixon out there? No. Does he have potentially a better bat? Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. You built a team that should be able to withstand a 0 for 4 or a 1 for 4 from Brandon Dixon.
Right.
I think it's nice. It's a nice thing to consider. It would be really cool to see. Hey, way to go, Nelson.
Right.
It seems to me to be pushing your luck.
Yeah, and you also don't want to run the risk of Nelson Cruz getting hurt, of Nelson Cruz. I mean, his role, he signed with this team knowing exactly what the expectation was, which is to platoon at DH. That's a big difference from everyday right fielder.
And Bob Melvin is sure to say, and Bob Melvin does make sure to get his message out both when he speaks to players and he speaks to them frequently, and then also publicly, mm-hmm. and sure to say that one of the things, if not the thing that he enjoys has enjoyed the most, mm-hmm. besides seeing them perform, is that both of these guys do know their roles and are here chasing a ring.
Sure.
Right. And so if that means that they play in 40 games, right, and do their part for a team that wins a championship at their age, right? Like a lot of times you're like, okay, I'll take your word for it. You're not like you didn't go for the biggest contract, or it was just a coincidence that the team that gave you the biggest contract was also the one that you believe gave you the best chance in the World Series.
Right.
But when you're talking about a 42-year-old and a 37-year-old who have been around, it's a little easier to believe that, you know what, they're chasing a ring and they're going to be fine with their role. I do believe the Padres deal or offer was the best for Matt Carpenter. There were other $1 million and more actually deals out there for Nelson Cruz. He took the one for the team that was going to help him get the thing that he lacks.
Sure. Kevin, before I took this job, I was just a guy and watching the Padres on TV. And last summer, I really fell in love with the way Jose Azocar played. Elite outfielder, gets some of the best jumps in baseball. Sometimes struggles at the plate. Sometimes, I mean, we've seen some of the bunting choices even so far earlier this year. But I think that this is a guy who is an elite level defender and a pretty darn good base runner. At some point, should he just play right field until Fernando Tatis shows up?
I would swap that he's a borderline elite base runner and a pretty good outfielder. Okay. The jump's good. The route's sometimes not. He's a young player. But sure. I'm splitting hairs with you.
But he does those two things pretty well. Yeah.
Yes. You are getting good at bats against right-handed pitchers from Rougned Odor. Mm-hmm. You are. And so what are you losing out there in the outfield is the question you're asking yourself if they're the Padres. And I think it's the question you're asking here. And Rougned Odor the other day, I think both the last two times he started in right has eventually been replaced by Jose Azocar. Mm-hmm. Last game, it was Azocar going into right field and Odor coming in to play second. So Matt Carpenter could come out of the game and Jake Cronenworth could slide over. I mean, this is an incredibly versatile team. Mm-hmm. If they were to send Azocar out there every time they faced a lefty before Tatis returns, absolutely. Mm-hmm. If they were to send Azocar out there when they face a lefty and Tatis DHs because somebody's getting a day off, I think that very well probably is what you're going to see. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I mean, you look, they're playing in New York. Starting, and we should probably talk about the Mets at some point.
Okay, yeah. Sure. Especially tonight's. We don't get Joe, but we get a rematch of Game 1. I don't think any of us remember Game 1 after what Joe Musgrove did in Game 3. But we get Yu Darvish, Max Scherzer tonight.
Right, and where's Josh Bell? Is he going to show up to save the Padres or no? No, he's in Cleveland,
right?
So, he's in Cleveland. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, you look at the next, at least between now and the time Tatis returns. You're looking at games basically just in New York and at Petco, correct? Mm-hmm. Two pretty big outfields if you're a right fielder.
Yes.
Fair?
Yes. Hey, fair.
I don't know. I just maybe
you've got Trent Grisham out there trying to also maybe trying to make sure that he gets to some balls in the left center gap.
Right.
But you got a guy who's very rangy out there in center field. Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. And look, they only face one left-hander. And yes. Great point, Ryan. Rougned Odor. And this guy, if you know his background, coming from Venezuela, a baseball family, you know the guy's a fighter. You know the guy is, a baseball guy, and that's great. He still probably shouldn't be in right field in crucial situations. Right. So, you make a good point. Azocar is a middling hitter against lefties and a not very good hitter who feels like he has to bunt, right? Against righties. And so, we're quibbling and it's, hey, this is what we do over 10 games, where it's almost like, yes, so much thought. They got 5 guys who travel with the analytics department with them, figuring all this stuff out in addition to the baseball personnel department and all the coaches. Mm-hmm. They spend a lot of time quibbling too, but it's 10 games where flip a coin, put someone out in right field.
Right. Well, and I think that Rougned Odor has earned a spot on this roster.
Heck yeah.
Probably just not as a platooning outfielder.
And he will not. Right. Exactly. And he will not be, other than he does give you that lefty thing. If Tatis is whatever, they have a lot of versatility, and that's really cool that he has been added there. But what he does is when Tatis comes back, Odor is your guy when you want to do something like you're taking Carpenter out for defensive purposes and moving Cronenworth over to play first.
Sure. Kevin, we just talked about some guys who are kind of, fringy stuff. We just got nice and dorky talking about the right field situation.
I'm comfortable.
You don't have to be a dork to get on board with Mets Padres.
Yeah.
I mean, Scherzer, Darvish, a rematch of last year's wild card series. I mean, this is big boy baseball starting tonight. You excited? And what do you expect from the Mets?
Yeah, I am excited, and I'm trying to figure out how I can legitimize this whole thing of, hey, it's a rematch because both the teams got their own problems now. Both these teams have moved on, but let's look at this from the Padres' perspective and the perspective of the Padres fan. Like, that was a quintessential, pivotal, earth-moving moment those 3 days in New York. And so to be coming back this soon after, to be facing Scherzer, if you look, Scherzer finds something to get himself riled up about all the time.
Oh,
It could be
yeah.
a shirt that somebody wore, right? Like that he saw, and whatever, right? And so if you don't think it's going to be in his mind, not that Scherzer is trying to win this because that would make up, no, but in the great competitor's mind, there is something that gets you going. And for him, he was embarrassed in game one. He and Jacob deGrom were made for that series, and he didn't get his job done. Josh Bell, Trent Grisham, so yes, this will be one. And you got Darvish coming back, and after kind of maybe this is the real start of his season. Maybe it'll be another one. We'll see what he does tonight. But you're going to get a capable. This is nice. What they got from Seth Lugo yesterday, you can be fairly certain you're going to get 5, 6 from Darvish. And I only say 5 because it's, at this point in what has been a wacky spring for him, a wacky few months.
Sure.
But yeah, no, I'm fired up. Pete Alonso has 5 homers. Lindor and McNeil not hitting great, but they got 3 doubles. Starling Marte, of course, already, hitting well. The usual suspects in their lineup. I think they got the lefty. They got the lefty David Peterson going tomorrow, and then righty Tyler McGill. The Padres have faced a little bit. It'll be Weathers for the Padres tomorrow against Peterson, and Snell on Wednesday against McGill.
Yeah, you don't have to look far to find superstars on both of these rosters.
You answer to my contention about this series. I think that anyone listening knows, but I do like to remind the folks that you are a San Diego native. You watched as much Padre baseball over the time that you were out of town. That series, briefly, you can get a little loquacious, Ryan. Briefly, put that series in perspective for me.
The Joe Musgrove thing was incredible, but it was game 1 where, you sit there and you go, well, yeah, this team has a chance. And, Josh Bell, I made a joke about Josh Bell earlier. That home run from Josh Bell, to me, showed that the Mets had some flaws. And it was huge. If we're talking big moments in the season, it's not a top 3 moment. It's a top 10 moment in their season.
Shocked the crowd, shocked Scherzer, shocked the Padres, just in terms of, okay, here we go.
And for all the guys,
this crowd on the Mets in a second,
right.
And especially in the postseason, these people get a little nuts. So yeah.
And of all the guys to do it too, right? It wasn't just that if Manny Machado went deep, that'd be one thing, but it was a hell of a pitch, if I remember correctly, fastball high, right?
Yep.
And Bell, destroyed it.
Things that he didn't do all August or September. Absolutely.
Right. So to me, that was huge. And, it's so funny. We all get the Dodger series was the Dodger series. The Dodger series, from my perspective, maybe the high point of San Diego Padres baseball in the last 30 years. 1998 included. People forget how clutch that Mets series was, how important that Mets series was.
Dodger series doesn't happen without the Mets series, obviously.
Great point. That is a great point.
It's in New York, which when you're here in October, you realize it's the center of the universe in terms of sports and media.
Sure. And and it happened there. And it was a lot of, it changed the Padres season. I think that at that point, when they got past the Mets, yeah, right.
Sorry,
you could say it was a must-win series. But you could say that when they got past the Mets, the Padres season was officially viewed as a success.
I know that I was in a bad mood based on my 1.5 hours of sleep before this. But next time you and John have to tell me that I am in the Blair Witch Project, that I am sitting in the dark. I apologize for that, John. I did not give you a chance to say, hey, Kevin, fix the lighting in your hotel room. I hope that's not too distracting for the folks. Anyway.
No, it's,
all right.
It's good.
What else you got for me, boss?
You know, I'm Seth Lugo continues to impress me. You in his first outing, you wrote that he was a strike throwing machine. I sat down in front of ESPN last night and said, "Okay, machine, show me what you got." And he was really good. He was really
a
good.
battler last night.
Yeah, and I mean, he works quickly. He's a guy. I'm not sure that it jumps off his stuff jumps off the page at you, but he jumps off the screen at you.
His curve does. His curve does. And
right.
he was at 88% first pitch strike last game, 56 last night. And then he also went, I didn't count it, but he went to 2-1, got to 3 ball counts. This is a really good lineup he's facing, and he got out of it. He got out of it with soft contact most of the time, with some more strikeouts. The guy is, man, all spring training, he's just this real placid guy, and from the South, went to this little tiny college, and it's just like, yeah, I knew I could be a starter. Yeah, I wanted to be back being a starter. And that's how he pitches. And I love that. Might not be the best quotes. I love watching it. I mean, it is one thing to watch Scherzer when he's on, DeGrom. Those are marvels of nature. To watch Seth Lugo go 6. Seth Lugo, whose stuff doesn't measure up to, Scherzer's waist, right? Anyway.
Right.
And then when Lugo doesn't have his best stuff and he goes for 6 on a night that we all like, if we had a pregame show, like every team does, right? We'd talk about the keys of the game. Mm-hmm. Do you ever notice how often those keys of the game don't have anything to do with the game?
Right.
And yet the team you're covering won or lost or whatever, right? Yesterday was one of those rare games where they needed Lugo to go at least 6, and they needed their offense to jump on the Braves early and take them out of the game. And that was essentially, you tell me another way they were going to win this game with their bullpen consisting of Tapia, Chris Matt, and maybe Brent Honeywell, because who they don't want to push because of his elbow issues.
Sure.
Maybe Steven Wilson if they had to have a closer, or Tim Hill if they had to have a closer. But basically, Tapia and Chris Matt were their options. So they had to score a lot of runs and have Lugo go deep. And they did it. That was a great game for the Padres.
Yeah, and you're telling me, by the way, Seth Lugo doesn't show back up at Citi Field today. A longtime Met, the team that really wouldn't give him a chance to start. And he shows up with an ERA of 1.5 and a WHIP of 1.
And they're hurting a little tiny bit. You could make the argument they didn't need Seth Lugo.
Right.
Well, they could use him now.
Absolutely. Kevin, last thing before we go, and this is kind of esoteric, but I'm in an esoteric mood today.
Wow.
The Padres just proved that they can slug it out with a team that is the favorite to go to the World Series this year. How important is it early on in the season that they show that they can hang with these teams that are also considered among the best in baseball? Because we're going to see that, right? I mean, we're going to see the Mets. Couple of weeks after that, we're going to see the Dodgers. Because I find it significant, but I'm not with the team every day.
Okay. I want to see it happen again here before I say, oh, wow, that's big.
Okay.
I want to see it happen again here. I want to see him go home and take 2, 3 or 4 against the Brewers or in this, isn't it Brewers Braves, win this homestand. I want to see when they go play the Yankees, and then sometime in May, then I'll say, yeah, these early season series could make a difference, because I still have in my mind, there's no way you're going to tell me that you have ever seen in person a better April series than 2021. Padres take 3 of 4 in Dodger Stadium.
Yep.
Tatis homers.
The Trevor Bauer stuff. Yep.
The double play started by Cronenworth. Darvish gutting it out. Weathers gutting it out. It was phenomenal. We thought, 4.5-hour games. Those games were so good that even with the pitch clock, they might have been 4 hours.
Sure.
Like, it was incredible. And we were convinced this is what it was going to be all season. So I as much as I really enjoyed this series, I enjoyed game 1, game 2, game 3. They were just battles. They really were battles. You can't call April games playoff games, but they were as close as you could come in April. I mean, whatever that means.
Right.
But it's April.
It's
So
April.
I'm validating what you're saying. I'm also trying to say, like, hey, let's wait and see, because 3 of 4 against the Braves, you go home and lose 3 of 4 to the Brewers.
Right. Who are you? Yeah. No, it's a great point. It's a great point. All right. Well, I think this is a good
Brewers.
Mm-hmm.
They're good, man. I mean, there might be 8 teams in the National League that are good, and the Brewers are one of them. So in this stretch of 24 of 25 to start the season, heck, you know who ends that stretch? The Diamondbacks, who are tied with the Padres for first place after taking 3 of 4 in Los Angeles.
You were the first guy, Kevin. You were the first guy. You said to me in Peoria in March, no, the Diamondbacks they're good.
Pitching, defense, on the outfield in particular, and on the bases. So not the formula of these days, but maybe the formula of pitch clock. We'll see. Exploiting some things. Yep.
Aggressive base runners, young and athletic. Reminds me of what we thought the Padres of a decade ago were. Yeah.
Don't know that they're not good enough. That happens. Like, you could see this Corbin Carroll. What's the other kid? The Mook kid. I don't know. Yeah. But you could see this young team of the Diamondbacks with the catcher Moreno.
Yep.
Sorry, I paid attention to the Padres, and I just, I love Josh Rojas. Yeah. Oh, you could see them being good this year, winning 88 games, and next year reverting because people figure them out, or in the second half of the season, people figuring them out. But right now, the Diamondbacks are young enough to not know that they're not supposed to be in first place. And they do have talent. So I'm telling you, they're a dangerous team. You'd rather play the Diamondbacks maybe later in the season when they're not rocking.
No, that's a great point. That's a great point. Awesome. Well, that'll do it, because we're right up on the 30-minute mark here. That'll do it for this episode of the Hot Lava Podcast. For Kevin Acee, Ryan Finley, we'll see you next time.